Hello, Goodman Games community, and this is another episode of the Scrivenery, where we come to you to talk about third-party publications and your role in that process. And so, joining me tonight as a very special guest is the one, the only Harley Stroh.
Evening, everybody. Ed, thank you so much for having me on. It's a real treat.
Oh yeah, I'm very happy and excited to have you with us. For those who don't know, I'm Ed Stanek of Oregon Games, and the third party publishing journey has been my passion for some time, and so we're here to help you engage in that passion as well. So before I dive into our various topics with Harley, I do want to share something that I'm going to drop into the chat. This is a link. Sometime last year, and my mind is fuzzy on recalling the specifics, but sometime last year, I think it was as a consequence of the Road Crew Advisory Council, or whatever Brendan happens to call it. And I think somewhere out of there, someone had mentioned that they had started a local DCC group in their town, and they were calling it their local chapter of the Gong Farmers Union. And so I thought, hey, this is a really neat thing. Let's try to expand that. So I contacted Brendan and I said, hey, you know what I think would be a really great way to leverage this would be to set up a Discord server specifically for groups like that to get together, and each one could have their own discussion channel within that server. And it'd be a great way to go and to go and look to see, hey, who are the other DCC players in my area? I want to strike up a game. I want to, go to a con and see who else is going, this kind of thing. And so he said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Can you take care of doing the logistics of that? And,
great idea.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair enough. That's something that you often run into. Hey, I've got this cool idea. Good. Can you volunteer to do it? Well, okay, yes, I can do that. So I have created the International Gong Farmers Union Discord server, the link to which has just been posted in the chat for this broadcast.
I see that.
So if you have any kind of interest in connecting with other DCC, MCC gamers in your area, then hey, drop on by there and look for a chapter in the channels. Look for a chapter that represents your geographical location. If there is not one for your geographical location, there is a discussion channel in there called New Chapter Submissions, and so drop into there and say, hey, I'm in,
Lusk, Wyoming.
Right, Musk, Wyoming, and I want a chapter for my area. What I need you to give is a number for your chapter. A lot of people are using area code. I don't care whatever you use. You just pull some number out of it doesn't matter. But it needs to have a number, and you need to give me the geographical location. Give me those things. I will create a chapter just that you will now, in the grand tradition, as we just discussed, of handing off duties and so forth, you will become the administrator of that channel.
we reward creativity with an additional responsibility.
With a task. Yes.
That's how Mike got promoted. So Ed, can you speak to traffic? Like what's our in the Gong Farmers Unions? Who are our most successful geographic areas, I guess, or?
So just kind of at a rough blush, I'd say probably there was one that was Southern California. Now, I don't know if that's like San Diego, Los Angeles, but anyway, the guy who created it said he wanted it called SoCal. Okay. Now, I've made two sets of posts about this on Facebook. One was roughly a month ago, and that got a little bit of traffic. And the one, and especially the one for SoCal was pretty busy right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I'm going to make another post because not everybody sees every post. And frankly, not everyone's on Facebook too, so I should ask other people to put it up in other social media places. I hadn't thought of that, but I'm putting it up here. So anyway, so I put another post about a week ago to the DCC and MCC groups on Facebook. Apparently, a lot more people saw this one because within the past, I've been swamped within the past few days, which is great. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Of I'd say 15 to 20 local chapters getting set up. And several of them have been quite busy already. I think the SoCal one was the busiest, but in fact, I created one for Cincinnati because that's where I am. And one guy dropped into it and said, "Hey, me and my buddies, we already kind of got this chapter going and all this." I said, "I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. You can have this. Trust me. I just created it because because that's where I am." And so I said, "And by the way, you're now the admin." So
awesome.
Yeah. So this it's gotten, and now it's snowballed a bit because I think people have seen it and then they mention it to their friends and so forth. And one of the other things is on the Facebook post this time around, I created a QR code for this URL. So that you can print that out and take it with you to your local game store, take it with you to game cons. Like we've got CincyCon here coming up in a little over a week, and I've printed out a placard that we can set at the Goodman Games table that'll have that QR code on it. So I think that'll help too. I just feel like it's in this time as the Goodman Games suite of products is really increasing in popularity. That it's that much more significant to be able to foster people to communicate with each other and build community.
Well, that is really, thank you for your service in that regard. That is really awesome. I can tell you that. So at the second half of the creative retreat, which was the management piece, Brendan and the Gong Farmers unions came up, and they have a lot of really cool things. I can't steal Brendan's thunder. I can't wait for him to deliver it. But they have a lot of cool tools and ideas coming up, and ways in which to integrate the Gong Farmers unions going forward. Like this isn't lost on on Joseph and Mike and Chris and Brendan. All that you guys have accomplished. It's really amazing, and it sounds like it's just getting cooler by the moment. So there's good things in store for the various unions.
Well, yeah, and I hope it snowballs, from here as more people get into it and then they contact their friends. In case anyone in the Goodman Games community has been living under a rock recently and has not happened to be aware of, if you'll notice Harley's background, has not happened to be aware of this little thing, this small little adventure and experience called the Purple Planet. There has been recently, now we're a couple weeks into it, but how should we say, a collaborative multi-party crowdfund event.
Yeah, really like a campaign, crowdfunding campaign, right? Because like including you, there's 7 other, or rather a total of 7. 7 other publishers, including Goodman Games. You guys, contributing to a scope of products for the Purple Planet.
Yeah, so this amazing crowdfund campaign that's been covering this scope, spearheading this brand new kind of approach, which has been tremendous. Just in case some of these people, like I said, have been living under a rock, have not been aware of this. Harley, if you could give us the 3x5 card introduction to what is the Purple Planet.
Awesome. Well, okay, so I've had enough practice by now. I should be able to pull this off. But the Purple Planet is a planetary hex crawl in the vein of John Carter of Mars and Almuric, where the PCs are cast across the cosmos to a dying planet where the planet's inhabitants have been waging war since time immemorial. And so you have this desolate planet, these ancient ruins, lost technologies, current, monsters and ferocious elements of the planet itself out to get you. All the while, the PCs are attempting to find a way to get back home. Um, so that's the Purple Planet as presented.
What if they
And
decide to go off the board and
yeah,
instead of going back home, try to take over the Purple
right,
Planet and make it
right,
their own domain?
exactly. So you think back to like when you and I were kids and we played, Isle of Dread, right? And so
Of
you have
course.
this focused, centralized location, which is thematically really consistent and really cool. And it has opportunities for, like we're gonna make friends with the folks that live here, and we're gonna, we're all gonna, we're gonna mine that vein of gold that's on the way up to the plateau, or we're gonna delve into the ruins in the center of the volcanic, like it's very very much in that same sort of way where there's lots of exploration, there's a lot of effort needed to survive. There's these waging war, houses waging war upon one another. Um, so, so there's a lot of adventure there where it's all going to be new to the PCs. Um, there's nothing familiar. There's nothing that's necessarily like a respite for them. That's ideally just nonstop adventure going forward.
All right. Well, sounds uh very much in the vein of what DCC was cut out for then. So, as we've mentioned, there has been a kind of forging a new path here. That the way that this is being served up to the community is by way of this collective, this campaign, this crowdfund campaign, which has included, as you said, a swath of third-party publishers. And so I'd like to kind of pose the question, how did the brainchild of this come about to where this notion, tell you what, before I dive into that question, this is going to be a good time. We are going to pause for just a moment. We're going to step to a be right back. And when we come back, Trevor will join us. So hold on, folks.
Awesome.
We'll be back in a jiff. And we're back. Okay, now, then to the question, how did this campaign notion come about of bringing in the third party Kith horde,
Right.
and what was the motivation behind that? How'd that come to
Sure.
pass?
Well, like ever since Dax Crawl and Tim Callahan's Crawl Jammer, Reed's Crawling Under the Broken Moon, like DCC RPG has always been blessed with enthusiastic creators, right? Like, and you guys know this as designers. Like at heart, the work for us as writers and artists is to inspire our judges and players to fall in love with whatever we create, right? And if they happen to love what we write so much that they want to add to it, like all the better. Like we've been so incredibly successful. And for whatever reason, and I place it fully at the feet of Dak Ultimac. The people that are self-select and are drawn to DCC want to create stuff, and Joseph's made it really easy for them. So there's this whole burbling community of third-party creators, which you guys know, which you guys are a part of, which you guys are leaders of. But it wasn't until Joseph came across BackerKit and started working more closely in collaboration with them that he realized, oh wait, it doesn't have to just it doesn't have to be just Goodman Games sucking all the air out of the room whenever we do another crowdfunding, which would have been Kickstarter. BackerKit has the ability to do a cross publisher campaign, and so we can for the folks that have the time, have the availability, the track record of having produced products that people love, like like, let's all jump in. Let's we can do this together. And so, it's not, Goodman Games sucking all the air out with Purple Planet, but rather, we have this Kith horde, this rogues gallery, this menagerie of other creators that are joining in, with Goodman Games, to contribute to the Purple Planet, and so that hopefully, if if somebody, likes, memories of a Purple Planet, they might also, pledge, for the main campaign, and then get to the main campaign, and they see, oh, like, I want these 3d6 dice that, Joseph Goodman has promised, to mail to me if I pledge for, a third product, or, campaign. And it's just, it's the latest evolution of Joseph Goodman trying to really promote other creators, other publishers, and really bring them along with him to the best of his ability. Previously, he was able to make the third-party license really acceptable. Previously we were able to share printing resources. You've probably been to some of his seminars where he explains printing, and this is just the latest in a legacy of trying to promote third-party publishers. And in, as we achieve our dreams, may they too, may we all too, similarly really enjoy creating for other people, collaborating with one another, and promoting this hobby that we all love so much. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I think I think it has definitely it's definitely helped to tap into that all the more. I totally see that. If you think about I'm trying to think what the right term here would be, not exactly product line, but the conceptual line of the Purple Planet system, shall we say? The Purple Planet scope and context. Yes, that's it. What are you hoping to see added to that by the engagement of the third party horde?
And actually, if I can add to that question, what things do you not want to see touched? Do you are there Purple Planet sacred cows?
No. Well, I mean, gosh, maybe you might have to like pin me to the wall, and we could think of some. But my 3 a.m. you shake me awake immediate response is like it's all on the table. I say that, but even though I know I've corrected Ed in the past, and I said you can't use the word man, you got to use the word kith or human or something. So all right, so maybe okay, let's read. Harley's brain goes too many ways. What do I hope can come out of third-party contributors to the Purple Planet? There's all these cairns and tombs scattered across the Purple Planet, and Harley's brain is only so cool. But you all have ideas and creations outside of my brain that are going to make cool things that I never would have come up with, that hopefully that I'm going to lift, and the ones that I think are amazing, I'm going to throw into my campaign, and that's going to surprise my players, because they're like, well, Harley didn't come up with this. There's no way he came up with something this cool. It even came down. We were doing the dice inserts, and Mike wrote the dice insert for the rusted Hulk. The kind of that brown glitter one. I was like, ugh, I don't like this color. I don't like this. Whatever. It looks cool. Why don't you write it, Mike? And he came back with the coolest stuff. I was like, oh yeah, right. This is all collaborative. Like this is why these games are so amazing. Like somebody else can take something that I don't see the allure of, that I don't. There's nothing brilliant popping out of me, but they take it. You guys take it. You add the specific magic that is completely unique to your brain and your skull space, and the life that you've lived so far, and the things that you've fallen in love with, and the things you hate, and you create something that I never could have come up with. I mean, I have goosebumps right now. Like that's so cool. So in general, like really, really specific things. Okay, like set based adventures, scattered across the plateau of the Purple Planet, where like if they walk into this hex, they're going to find this amazing thing, that only Trevor could have dreamed up. And if they walk into this hex, or somehow they get beneath the ancestor peaks, well, here's this amazing adventure that Ed's cooked up. So really, it's cool, specific set based place because of the nature of the Purple Planet, and just how much we really did lean into its antiquity. It doesn't have to necessarily relate to anything else. There's a lot of exception-based functionality, if that makes any sense. And that, there was just a stretch for 100 years when this was possible, and then after that and before that, it never existed. And so, like, you're not tied to a bunch of canon because the place is so ancient and it's so like destroyed. But in addition to those specific like location-based adventures and encounters and cool things, but there's also, I think, a lot of value of like broad used tools to help judges manage that hex crawl in a really creative way. I never used them, but did you guys ever play Greyhawk and you flip to the glossography and it was like the first 20 pages were nothing but random encounters like specific to, well, if you're in the Cairn Hills in winter,
right,
you're gonna run into these guys. And I just remember as a child thinking like, whoa, how cool that someone's imagined a world so fully that those sorts of tools exist. And similarly, we can offer the same thing for the Purple Planet. Where and it's similar, it can be encounter tables, it can be what have you, but just like tools that can really serve to make a judge's work running a hex crawl, which can be so daunting, right? There's it's not a dungeon where I've prepped for my 2 hours. I know they can go forward, they can go left, they can go right. That is the spirit.
But they never do what you choose or what you
never do,
expect.
Right? And even worse, this game that we loved, Dungeon Crawl Classics, makes it possible for them to be, what? I miscast my magic missile spell. I got a 1. The corruption throws me and all my friends across the cosmos to the purple. It's like
right.
The illusion of. Anyways, but that could be really daunting for judges to have that sort of freedom until you get to a certain point. You're like, I don't need to know what's going on. If I can just stay 5 minutes ahead of my players, that's enough. And so tools that allow, there we go. It took me 5 minutes to get there, but tools that allow you to stay 5 minutes ahead of your players. Someone should feel that. That's the tagline for, next smoking worm. Like, all right, it's just tools to stay ahead of your players. But those are things that I find useful. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. I mean, because, you're just as much judges as I am.
Some many episodes ago, we talked about, I think I was talking with Daniel Bishop, and I was talking about the notion of different, there's so much room for different types of third-party products because different people place value on, as a judge, for example, especially, different judges place value on different tools.
Yeah.
Some judges who have trouble coming up with random encounters are really going to value a table of random encounters. Some judges who have trouble coming up with an NPC in a tavern are really going to value a set of NPCs with roleplay tips. And different people have different things that add value to them in a game context and is something that is maybe the challenging part of the game for them. And so you provide this resource for them. And so because there's a different swath of things that are helpful and interesting to different people, then that diversity of products helps in different ways. And I think that it's been cool as you look at the type of different projects that we've had. Now, yeah, a lot of them of the Purple Planet projects are adventures. But even within that scope, very different adventures by their nature.
Yeah.
And then there was also, of course, the one product which is 101 hex encounters. Then there's also the product of the rollfunkydice.com. So which we might think, well, okay, but really, how big of a deal is that? Let me tell you. as I play, I run a lot of events at larger conventions, Gen Con, Origins, and for whatever reason, consistently 75+% of my players have never played DCC before. Some of them have never played a role-playing game before. Maybe they're into D&D, and so they've got the crazy dice, which is the standard polyhedral dice.
Right.
I've started now keep bringing with me about 6 extra sets of DCC type dice, so that for those people, they're not left out. Having an app that provides a function, like maybe you're a road crew person, you're running an event at your local game store. Hey, folks, try out this game. Maybe you haven't played before. Oh, it needs a D7. Do you have one of those? Well, it's okay. There's this web page you can pull up on your phone. Until you get addicted to the game, then you're going to buy the dice. But anyway, So my point being,
and that's actually why I think that the Goodman seven funky dice set is so helpful. It's, first of all, it's buy-in is cheap. It's $11. It gives you all the off-size dice that you won't normally have. And so instead of bringing full sets of dice to cons now, which ends up being bulky if you've got three or 4 sets, I'm just taking just the 7 funky dice. And I'm taking 4 sets of those, and then I can just hand them out in little trays, and I'm like, here you go. These are the dice you don't have.
Right. Yeah, so I think that we get the diversity because each of the different contributors has had their own flavor project. And it struck me as you're describing it, an analogy. Many years ago, I had this revelation. Someone was wanting to learn how to be a GM, and they were asking my advice. And I said, consistently, the number one mistake that new GMs make is over-scripting. Almost all the time. And even after I warn people, they still do it anyway. And I know why, because I did the same thing. Right. And it's because you as a GM, you have a story that you want to tell. And it occurred to me eventually, the story isn't mine to tell. It's the players who tell the story. And I bring that up now because in a certain sense, you can take this make it in that analogy on a broader scope of Goodman Games is kind of like the judge or GM creating the environment in which the players, which is all of us in the broader community, are telling the story. And so that is why when you talked about, not just with Purple Planet, but DCC writ large, it's not this heavy-handed, well, hey, no, this is the correct way to play the game. It's this, hey, here's this framework, and the broad swath of players who come up with the most amazing things that no single person could, they tell the story of DCC writ large.
That's brilliant.
And
That's
tell it in a way that creates a far more memorable story than a couple people at Goodman Games could, just like my players in my game have created more memorable moments than me as a judge could have created.
Yeah, I think that's really apt. Like how fortunate are we that, 10, 14 years ago, whatever, Joseph was really open to that.
Well, because he started, that's how he got his start.
Creating the game. And
I mean,
here we are.
Yeah, I mean, but that's how Joseph got his start, right? He is the most successful third-party publisher, right?
Yes. Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's
absolutely the most successful third-party publisher of all the third-party publishers that came out of the third edition revolution.
The D20 boom,
the D20 boom, right? Pathfinder doesn't count because they were an in-house organ until the schism. But and so you really can't count. They weren't a third party publisher, duking it out. They had Dragon and Dungeon as the driving economic force to keep them going. And Glorantha didn't come until after the schism. So, but of the third party publishers, almost all of them are gone. Right? The one who remains, I mean, many of them still are around, but they're not doing D&D anymore.
Right.
And Joseph has remained fairly true to his third-party publishing roots. Dungeon Crawl Classics, the line started with issue 1 in 2010? Or no, it was earlier than that, 2004, 2003, right? And so 20 years,
like DCC RPG, but like even not DCC RPG, but
DCC Dungeon Crawl Classics, the line.
Adventures, right?
Yeah, it started in 2003.
Yeah.
I was actually just reading that Polyhedron interview with Joseph that is 20 years old right now, where he says he has a 40-year business plan. So this is the 20th anniversary of that. You should go look it up. Go look it up.
We're the halftime show.
See if that plan has survived encounter with the enemy.
Yep.
You know, like things are so spectacularly more successful and wild than I think any of us ever anticipated, and that includes Joseph. I mean, we count ourselves so fortunate right now. You know, like every time you go to the Goodman website, they're hiring for a new, somebody else to help out in the warehouse. Like things are just like
they're booming.
And I think one of the prime reasons for that is this very notion that rather than hey, this is how it's going to be, he's made it open to make it what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And again, just like my players collectively tell a far better story than I as a judge ever could as one person. Likewise, giving that breadth of invitation to the community to be a part of the process. And let's be honest, the third party publishing engagement is what that's all about.
Yeah.
That's why I'm sure that's why that one of the reasons why Goodman Games is so very supportive of the third party communities, because they realize it makes the game so much more than it could be without.
Yeah. It's always so awesome. One of my favorite parts about going to Gen Con is, because you guys know it, but like you see, there's the kind of like the wall of tables as the booth has gotten larger. Thank Lord the booth has gotten larger. Like just the breadth of third party projects or offerings is so cool. And and just like there's just I don't know, like and I'm sorry, you guys can tell me to shut up. You guys can't. But when I was a kid, I would go to Toys R Us, and I was young, I was in fourth grade. You'd walk in, and you would see this wall of like TSR stuff. And in my little fourth grade mind, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's no end to this. This is amazing. They'll publish things that I'll be discovering when I'm 60 years old. And then you grow up and you discover, well, no, actually they didn't. There was a finite amount of things, but that dream of fourth grade Harley Stroh is real when it comes to Goodman Games and the third party offerings. There's no way I'm going to discover all of these. And I have a couple zines that were like literally just photocopies off, stapled. They may not even have stats in them, but it's like brilliant stuff that was handed to me by this girl in Albuquerque. And it's DCC stuff, and like just and then you get all the way over to to the other end where it's this professional art and just layout just to make you drool for it, and like Tales from the Smoking Worm, and like the art is beautiful, the covers are like amazing, like you want to possess them just because they look so good.
Thanks.
And like and everything in between, and all of that real cornucopia of possibility. Like like there's publishers like Tim Callahan, he contributed to the original Purple Planet, and he wrote Crawljammer, and then he went on. He has a very successful life as a dad and doing all these other things. You have to track down Crawljammer now, and to get a physical copy of Crawljammer would be something really special, right? And so there's even these waves of publishers coming through. Like there's more products now than ever, but the history of products back there, is also really cool. There's just I don't know. There's so much to be discovered, so much that still lies ahead. Like the best third party products still haven't been printed yet, still haven't been conceived.
Very dreamed of, right? Yeah, right.
Like what's next, and we don't even know. And like you said, Ed, that's where the adventure lies.
Yeah,
it's just so cool. It's such a privilege and an honor to be a part of that. Not to own it, I've had my contributions, but just to be a leaf floating in the water that is this stream is such a gift.
Yeah. So as a third-party publisher looking from the outside in on the Purple Planet, horde. So I see several projects, right? 6 or 7 of them. They're averaging. I check in about once a week on where we're going because I backed everything that I was going to back on the first day, and which was most of it. And so, but I check in on it about once a week to see where we're at. And it looks to me like the third party publishers are sitting at about 10% of the total of what Goodman's BackerKit is currently at. So when it's at about 240,000, which is where it's at roughly now, 225, 230. When I sit there and quickly add up mentally all the other backers, they're sitting at about 10%, which actually is really good return. That's a pretty good slice of the pie. And obviously each third-party publisher is having their own feeling
variation
of and failure and variation on that. Some of them are getting more backers than others and stuff like this and stuff, which is fine. Like Ed said, and we've talked about, not every product is exactly what a judge is looking for or a player, right? And so, and you have to admit, the vast majority of the offerings are judge centric.
Yes, that's true.
So they're other than the dice skin or whatever it is, the backer kit for that, everything else is pretty judge centric. But that's really great. So you have this wave. You've got people that are supporting the Purple Planet. They've maybe already had ideas, or they've developed ideas based on this interaction that you guys are testing. So I guess out of that comes 2 questions. The first one is this: Harley, did you get to look at everybody's products before, or have you not even seen them yet?
It was a collaborative lead up.
Yeah.
There were some folks that were further along with their ideas. It wasn't Harley Stroh, puts his official stamp of, I'm not Ed Greenwood, now this is canon, go forth and publish. And so some of the folks had their ideas further along. Some of the folks were really gracious, and they're like, "Hey, Harley, what do you think of this?" And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. What do you think about X, Y, and Z?" But I think overall, and Ed, you can contradict me here actually, because I'm really interested in what it felt like from the third party side.
Right, and that's the follow up question.
Yeah, like I think they're given a great deal of freedom, as well as much as my schedule would permit, which is frustrating, really, really tight. The access to to me and Mike and Joseph to say, hey guys, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Can you weigh in on this before I dive in? But just as the same way that the Goodman third party license offers a lot of freedom, so too where the third parties who are willing to contribute to the Purple Planet also granted a great deal of freedom in how they took the materials of the Purple Planet, transformed them or changed them and made them their own.
Sure.
Excuse me, I apologize.
So from your viewpoint, you got some interaction, and everything. Ed, from your viewpoint as a third-party publisher, how much interaction did you feel you got with the Goodman Games crew? Right, Michael Curtis, Joseph Goodman, Harley Stroh. These are kind of the key players that we're talking about when we talk about Purple Planet. And then on the flip side of that, how much conversation was there between the third-party publishers? For instance, and let me just state, I'm not in on this horde, so I'm actually genuinely interested to hear how much the third-party publishers were aware of each other previous to the to launch, and B, how much they interacted and said, hey, I'm going to do a project that's going to be X. And it's I don't want to make sure that I don't step on somebody else's toes, or did anything like that happen? Ed's dealing with an emergency, so.
Oh no! Okay, all right.
So
okay.
All
right, I'm back. Yeah. I had a video that started playing on another tab that I had open, and I thought, I don't know if that's getting picked up on my mic, but I got to shut that down. Okay. So I missed a little bit of the question, but I think I got the gist of it.
The question is 2-part. It's how much, did you feel like you got ample and good access, and no criticisms, right? I mean, that's not what we're here for. But from your perspective as a third party publisher, did you get the access you wanted from Harley or Michael or Joseph? And then on the flip side, how much awareness and or interaction was there with fellow third party creators? I mean, I think it's rare for third party creators to work together on a project.
Right. Yeah. And by our nature, we tend to be pretty independent, and so herding those cats. Okay, so let me touch the on the third party, on the other publisher side of that question first, because this was one part of the experience that was a bit of a challenge for me. I am a hyper organized person. I like to know what I'm expecting. I like to know what's expected of me. I like to know what a battle plan is. I know you got to understand, you got to be flexible for what comes up. But at any rate, the process of having this collection of the different publishers involved, there were a couple points where I got kind of itchy. Like I feel like there's a lot of chaos going on here, and chaos makes me uncomfortable. So I reached out to the other publishers and said, hey, do you mind if we get together and have a little meeting and talk about what our progress is, what we're doing, what the state of things, are we all do we all understand, have a common understanding of what the stretch goals are and that kind of thing, et cetera, et cetera. And they humored me, and we all got together and we had those conversations, and they were, I think, positive. We got to clear up a few things where we all had a different concept of what this was supposed to be or what this stretch goal was, et cetera. And so on the one hand, even though we weren't working on the same adventure or whatever, there were still pieces, there were still aspects of it in which a certain amount of cooperation was necessary, and that I really I really felt I needed to reach out and put some of that into place, or else I was going to feel like I was flying without, or I was walking without a net on the tightrope, and that makes me uncomfortable. So, with respect to From Goodman Games, on the one hand, yes, there was very much the understanding and the impression given of, hey, your third-party creators, go create. But nevertheless, I don't know if the others did, but I at least felt a certain amount of, yeah, but I have a responsibility. There are people who are very fond of this product, who very much into this. It'd be like a certain company taking over a high profile science fiction franchise and putting out some stuff that a lot of the fan base doesn't like. So I felt like if I wanted to feel confident that I wasn't in my angle of taking my product and going the direction that struck me, that I wasn't failing to do justice to, or I wasn't departing from the vision that was Purple Planet. And so that's why when I got my manuscript together, I sent it to Goodman Games, and I don't remember if it was to Joseph or I sent it to Harley you, but anyway, it ended up with Harley, and I said, hey, I'd like someone to look over this and say, and assess, how does this fit with the vibe of Purple Planet and the context and everything that you're, because I don't want to have someone who is very much expecting a certain kind of thing feel like that's not what they're getting. And so then that's where Harley had some suggestions of, maybe tweak this and tweak that, and that'll help. Okay, good. And so I felt like, to the extent that that I was seeking for some feedback. That feedback was there. I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't some more of that coming unsolicited from Goodman Games. I feel like, wow, there's a lot of trust that they're placing on us, and that made me nervous. And
no, that's fair. And I think that's really good feedback, because I don't think this is the last time that we're going to try to implement this sort of group crowdfunding. I think it's been really successful for Goodman Games. Hopefully, it feels very successful to third-party publishers. And next time we do it, like, how cool would it be to offer, not guidelines per se, but kind of more of a rubric to help, really set the tone for the other creators, so they don't have to feel, out on a limb by themselves. I think there's probably one of the reasons that Joseph chose the third-party publishers that he did. One, they had availability in their schedules, they had proven track records, but they're also able to, survive in this ecosystem alone, which is really a daunting prospect for a lot of folks. It's not, with everything Goodman Games has going on. Joseph wasn't there to hold everybody's hand, and there was a lot of admirable pioneering that was done and initiated. It might have been, you, Ed, is like, okay, guys, like, we need to have a meeting. It's going to be this day, and I'm going to put a Google sheet together that's going to explain to you guys, what's going on here. I think that might have been from me. I apologize for not recalling who, but
yeah, I did that because I'm obsessive about organizing.
Yeah. But to be able to both survive in the face of chaos, like your chaos thermometer can go this far, and then you're like, all right, guys, I'm getting a little twitchy, but that it's really admirable, and it speaks highly to the third-party publishers, and going into the dungeon is terrifying, and that's so far everyone who's gone into the dungeon along with us, our party of explorers, of third-party explorers, they've all met their goals. They're all funding, and yeah, I think there's a lot to be proud of, and to be in that circle, and to be able to look around and like, man, guys, we tried this for the first time. There were good times, there were bad times when we all sent out the same email at 7 a.m. from 7 different publishers, and bombed everyone's inbox with Purple Planet spam. Well, we need to work on that, but I think there's a lot to be proud of it, and folks that yeah, there's a lot. It's very admirable.
I did get 56 emails in the first 2 days. But to be honest,
we're working on it, Trevor.
It's okay. They've come way down. I mean, I am not unlike most Kickstarter backers that 90% of the time, 95% of the time, once I've backed a project, I don't care about it until it's done.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe I'm just jaded. I'm at over almost 300 Kickstarters that I've backed at this point. I'm not the highest, right? There are some DCC backers that are like sitting at 1,500. So, and I know who you guys are. This must be their primary form of purchasing things. It's mine, but and that doesn't matter, because I get several hundred emails a day, and I just go through and I go click, 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 click. I've already heard from all these people. I've already paid. I've already committed money. I look at one, or I look at 2 or 3, and they're all identical, or pretty much identical, and I'm just like, okay, I just deleted them. It wasn't a big issue. Right. It took all of 2 minutes. But so if that's your biggest hiccup, then that's a pretty good hiccup to have, right?
Yeah. And so an interesting. So one of the successes, and I don't know how other third-party publishers can use this, but when Goodman Games runs a crowdfunding campaign, sure, it's Purple Planet carrying that banner, but beneath that, he's also selling a copy of the core book and these 15 other things. Most of them have to do with the Purple Planet, but some also don't. And so for the other third-party publishers out there, and maybe they've all done it, but the kind of the deeper your back catalog is when you do one of these crowdfunding things, if you can add those as add-ons, issue 1, issue 2, well, buy all 6 issues, be all in for Tales of the Smoking Worm, for 20% off. Like, that's what really drives those big Goodman numbers. Purple Planet is a portion of that, but having that real deep back catalog that you can bundle together when you have the fan on your page, I think is really what's really Goodman Games has done really successfully.
Well, and I think an indication of that, at one point, just a couple of days into the campaign, I did a quick calculation of what is the average pledge for the Goodman Games portion of this. And at that time, it was $170 was the average pledge. And so that speaks to that very thing you're talking about, where people are using that opportunity to pick up additional things that are the add-ons and so forth. Or some of them I'm sure were because they were taking the particularly high pledge levels of what you're getting. But that one step blew me away.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to be very careful with those estimates. I mean, you have the Jim Scatches of the world,
right?
Who are buying 10 Errol Otis covers or something like this, and so those outliers can really bring your average. But I mean, the truth is I think I've run 10 Kickstarters now, and the metric that I spend the most time staring at is average sale. Right. So what is the average pledge level? That's the thing. And if I'm down on that, then I'm worried. If I'm up on it, that's great. And
so, Trevor, without too much inside baseball, what levers can you pull as a publisher to really kind of manipulate that average pledge level?
The first 48 hours are the absolutely most important.
Okay.
That you can use. The first 24 hours are critical. And so I have my curves, and I don't have any graphs to pull out for you, but my curves used to look like a third of my sales the first 24 to 36 hours, a third of my sales over essentially 20 days, and a third of my sales in the last 20, right? And so that 20 days is excruciatingly painful. As many people who have run Kickstarters will tell you,
the Sargasso Sea of doldrums.
It seems. I mean, sometimes I have to step back, and my colleagues, the folks who are on the Worm team, will know. I'll get depressed. You get like into day 14, 15, and you're like, oh my God, this is not going as it should. And you have to learn to take a step back and say, where was I at 24 hours, and where am I now? Oh, I'm twice where I was at. I'm doing okay. Right? You have to have faith in the system. What I found was offering things like little perks, smoking worm coasters, things like this. We're actually slowly moving towards an entire smoking worm pub set. I'm fairly certain. Like the latest smoking worm had a small menu insert,
that's cool.
You'd have like a Valentine's Day insert for your menu. This was a Christmas festival, end of the year Yule type insert with traditional Yule things.
You need etched glass tankards.
Those are coming. But they're all like Yule based and everything and stuff like this. And then they have real DCC stats associated with them. So if you eat the figgy pudding, it does this for you. If you, and things like that, those things, they stick around. Like, what is it? I can't believe this. And, I lived in England for 8 years, and my wife loves it. But basically the pudding that it's not figgy pudding, but the pudding that is all of the different types of, vegetables and or fruits and everything that are all gelled, and the stuff lasts forever, right? And so that you basically have a food stuff you can stick in your stack, and it never goes bad. And things like that. So everything has little perks to it. Those things take my sales from a third, like I was talking about, to 2/3, 1/3. And the ability to get 2/3 of your sales in the first 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on how you set that, is absolutely game changing. First of all, I know that I'm going to fund at the end of the first or second day. And not only have I funded, but I'm usually at 200% or something. And that feels really good because the funding goal is never the same as the true cost of a project. And maybe we should revisit that as a topic. I think it's a topic in and of itself to discuss how to set strategically a funding goal versus what you actually need to get a project finished. And it's dependent on every person. Mine has gone up as my printing cost, not my printing costs, but my illustrator costs have gone. Sure. My illustrator costs as much as my printing costs now. And so I spend about $2,500 to $3,000 on illustrations for smoking for an issue of Smoking Worm, which for an issue of Smoking Worm is a lot. We pay very well for our illustrations,
but it shows. I mean,
we get really good illustrators.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, the covers they're beautiful. I mean,
they're phenomenal. Yeah, I am so happy. And on this issue, we've been dipping into dip pen. So I've been looking for just dip pen illustrators.
Oh, wow.
Analog, but they only work in dip pen. And so we've got some new illustrators who only work in dip pen, and they are absolutely crazily different than what you would expect. And it's really awesome stuff. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So really quickly, so we don't lose the track. Which issue is that? What should we be looking for?
Issue 9. Okay. There's going to be an update going out for all the backers in the next couple days, but I've got tons of this is probably one of my best art issues ever. Oh. I would say. When it came together, I was kind of worried that we weren't going to have any art. We were going to have art, but it wasn't going to be like, oh, that's just awesome. And then I started seeing things at the corners of my eyes. Things would come through my inbox, and I was like, oh wait, now this is really cool. These are getting really good. And awesome. So it's really fascinating. That's my suggestion, is that you have to find something that your fan base loves, that they're gonna go click click done. So it doubled my sales basically in the first 24 hours. Those are all people who are diehards.
Yeah.
But those are people who are important. They're essential to your business and keeping you alive. So back to Purple Planet. You guys have got the Horde. I think it's going to be a roaring success. You've got 10 days to 2 weeks left, I think. And so people are just going to, it'll all roll in, and it looks like everybody is going to hit some really great totals. I have a couple other questions. The first of which is, Ed, maybe you can help me with this. Are the third-party products going to go into distribution? Are they going to be something that's going to show up in the gaming stores all over, or are these going to be boutique limited runs? And is that dependent on the individual who is involved?
I think that would be dependent on the publisher. I don't really know. I don't recall that topic coming up. Mine, I know. I will. Okay, let me put a caveat on this. Because of the stretch goals, there are 2 versions of my product. Yeah. One that is for backers only, and it includes the add-ins in it of the drop-in encounter and the glyph interpretations.
Nice.
That will only go to project or to backers of the campaign. I've got another edition of the product, which is otherwise entirely the same. I'll give a few weeks after the campaign is fulfilled, and then I will make that live on my own private distribution, because I don't want people to be able to order that before they could have gotten the campaign copy. Nice. So after the campaign is being fulfilled, then I'll activate the other one. I don't know what the other publishers are doing. That hasn't actually come up.
So that hasn't been a conversation that the publishing team or group has had as a whole.
Not that I recall, no.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that is what it is, right? But it was my looking at the backer kits. It was very hard moving between publishers to see a definitive discussion within each backer kit about how they were fulfilling, and how was this going to be essentially a print on demand that was going to get sent out, or was it going to be an offset press or risographic press? A couple people touched on that. If you're doing risographic, you're always telling people because it's so expensive, and you're invariably asking for more money. because of that. But I was actually a little surprised that I didn't see some homogeneity in that department. Not that that's a problem, but that's an interesting thing to think about, that some of these Purple Planet adventures may not make it into mainline distribution.
Oh yeah,
And
no, that's absolutely yeah.
And certainly if somebody's taking that approach, they should bring that part of their pitch that this is an exclusive thing.
Yeah.
And
that's something to highlight.
Yeah, so much of it is going to go back to each of the third-party publishers. I mean, and Ed, I think you can speak to this a little bit more, but it was only just recently, maybe in the last week, that we're really trying to pin down that Goodman Games will be responsible for fulfillment
Physical fulfillment,
of all the different projects. And so you don't have to pay for shipping 17 times.
I'm so happy to hear that.
All these, but I don't even know what's the box going to look like. I mean, it's going to be like a pallet.
Right, for some people, they're going to get a pallet to your house.
So that's cool. That's actually a really neat coordination that I don't think was anticipated by the powers that be until we were into this thing.
And sometimes those are emergent properties of a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? They're things that each of us thinks about in an insular way, and we plan for it in our own way. And we may not have that conversation. This is part of learning, team building and everything and stuff. Not that Goodman is bad at team building or the third-party publishers are, but I mean, you're on new ground. And so the question becomes, all right, is everybody shipping things out on their own, or are we all going to ship to a central location and then ship it out? Because first of all, that's more expensive.
Right. And your imagination only takes you so far, right? Because one of the things Ed had mentioned, there's each of the publishers is creating this sheet of glyphs that gets included. Their iteration of translations of what the artifact buttons and glyphs mean. And we all agreed to it, and then the publisher's like, okay, but like, what does this really mean? Am I shipping you a ream of paper with this all printed on it? Like how are it's great to have this, this idea, but what does this look like?
We need clarity though. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I mean, so it's fun to see, okay, like all this came to be, through the grace of the publishers, and kind of their patience with our learning curve. But then what is this going to make possible for the next time around? I'm really excited to see.
I am too. So with that in mind, that's a great lead-in question to the other question that I've had. This is a revisit to the Purple Planet. Most of the Goodman product is essentially just a reprinting of the box set, which
this is true.
I lament the loss of the box, but I understand that it is far more economical to print hardback books. But will there be a revisit? Are we going to come back to the Purple Planet? Is there a part 2 that we're going to hear of? And maybe you can't talk to that, and that would be okay.
Is there anything on the schedule? No. Is Harley Stroh going to be championing, banging on Mike's office door, a year from now? Absolutely yes. When I first agreed to write, it must have been a year and a half ago, write some of the new material and the new adventure that's being included in the hardback. I'm like, and Mike, I can't do this unless there's also warlords on the Purple Planet. Like Chessman ends at this point, and the very next thing that you need is warlords on the Purple Planet. And it was like, so there's a soft agreement. Everyone should. That's what I'll do. I'll email you all postcards. You can print them out and mail them into Goodman Games. Say, we demand, all of us to, to the horde. You've unleashed the horde. Now, you will reap what you have sown. and the Kith horde is still out there. They're still writing and publishing stuff, and they're going to contribute to, Return to the Purple Planet, Warlords on the Purple Planet 2 in a couple of years. I think probably before then what we'll see is, and again, it's not on any schedule, but I suspect that, Journey to the Center of Aerith was very similar in that, when we published that, we published a series of small digest supplements.
Yep.
And I think that's really ripe for third-party publishers to jump in on and really contribute to this vast mythic underworld gloom, and and everyone can bring that'd be a really easy, again, like an exception based encounter area sort of thing to bring to that. We'll probably see that before we return to the Purple Planet again, but Mike Curtis, if you're watching, remember you promised me we'd do Warlords.
Yep. So there's more Purple Planet in Harley Stroh.
Yes.
Yes. And
so maybe I just need a third-party publisher. Let me
maybe
know if
you just need a third party. Some Stroh. We'll call it the Strohverse, right? That'll be the imprint Strohverse, and we'll put it in purple, and not overtly say it.
There you go.
But so does this mean that something like the Purple Planet should be on the radar of third-party publishers going forward? They're not part of the horde.
Right.
Other third-party publishers at this point should think about, do I have a deep passion for Purple Planet? I've played it with we've run it as a campaign, and I've got some material that I'd love to get out there that was our take on blah blah blah, and we should get it out there. What is your feeling on that?
Well, okay, so please take this as, Harley Stroh is I am a freelancer. I'm not Mike. I'm not Joseph. But I think what you're pointing at, and I think is really true, is that Joseph has just signaled to all the third-party publishers that the whole universe, the 1,000 Insane Worlds, is all open to third-party publishers. If you want to write an adventure and set it in Punjar, if you want to, you have a Shutter Mountain adventure that's just begging to be released. All these things are open and available. With a blessing from the man on high.
And that's been my experience too. When I've reached out to Joseph, I do say that I had to show some sea legs.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes. Yes.
Right. I had to get a couple of publications out and under me, and build a working relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've experienced since then is, like we came up with the idea. Actually, Nick Barron, who I'm sure we all know,
of course.
Nick did a great critique of Tales from the Smoking Worm #3, and very rightly pointed out that I needed to provide more material for my patron that was in there, this Earth Elemental patron called Dornivis. And he was like, I want to see the types of things that Dornivis sends people on. And so I sat there, I listened to that, and I listened to Nick, and I wrote a list of things to add to patrons. And one of them was patron missions.
Uh-huh.
The other one was patron. The other one was, and so now we've published 3 or 4 of these patron missions. It's a D7. It's 7 patron missions, usually about 4 pages long. And I started with Dornivis, just for Nick.
Yeah.
And we've done more, and everything. And after 2 or 3 of them that were my patrons, I asked Joseph. I said, "Do you mind if I do Bubugabill's patron missions?
Uh-huh.
Do you mind if I do CaesarCon patron missions? Do you mind if I use? I'm not going to rewrite your patrons. That's not the thing.
Right.
These are paragraph long, drop in, quid pro quo patron missions, right? So can I do this?" And he said, "Well, of course, everything is subject to approval, but you have my preliminary approval on the concept."
Uh-huh.
And so then I wrote a whole, I wrote, and I've got a guy who actually does most of the writing. His name is Jose Cardoza.
Right.
And Cardozo, maybe sometimes I get that name wrong. I apologize if I did, Jose. But he and I have built a great rapport. And so we basically have every patron in the core rules and the annual written. We have all the missions written. We have all my patron missions written. They're just sitting here waiting to get published.
Oh my God, dude.
And what we just started layering in were like patron enemies, 3 patron enemies, right? Because patrons, create enemies. And so those are, so that critique.
I love this idea.
Was really awesome, right? Because I sat down and I said, what would I want to really flesh out a patron? Not that the patron concept isn't well fleshed.
Right.
We added rumors. Mm-hmm. So I've got patron rumor tables coming.
Dude.
So if you're just introducing CaesarCon into your game, you can have like 14 rumors that are all about, what people tell you about CaesarCon, right? Which may or may not be true or false. We just leave it up to your imagination.
Yeah.
This Earth Elemental patron, has this already been published, or is this to come?
issue 3, and sorry, I have to look sometimes.
Yeah, it's all good.
Forgets where I publish things. And the patron missions are in issue 8,
okay,
I believe, or something like that. No, issue 5. Yes, issue 5.
okay.
And so you can see those, and they're developing. We've done 5. We published. We'll have printed 5 of them here in about a month. And so yeah,
have you? I don't want to. I am interrupting you, and I apologize. So I must.
No, we're right at the end of the show, and we're rolling. We're getting a little off topic, but this is meant to generate my point is that these are all ideas that I had that augment something. Oh, okay, thanks, and everything. But ask your question, Harley.
Would you ever consider? So now you have all this experience. You've done this with more patrons than anybody else has. Would you guys ever consider like publishing essentially like a patron workbook where I can buy, your 4-sheet pamphlet, maybe it's 3-hole punch, maybe it's perforated, who knows, whatever. I'm going to go through, and for my own game, my own Harley's own personal punjar, I can answer those questions, the questions that you've provided on this worksheet. Yep. And by the time I'm done, I have this full-fledged patron with things that I might not have otherwise, thought to bring to the table.
That's a great idea. And yeah, I would love to do that. That would be so much fun.
Right? I mean, it'd be like, I would love like essentially a judge's character sheet.
Essentially just like that. It would be like a DCC folio for a new patron,
Yeah.
Here's the questions you need to ask on the top of each page. Here's the prompt, write your notes in. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because this whole concept, like the notion of the missions, I think is fabulous, and really helps to flesh out making the patron more substantial and significant in the game, besides just someone who gave me a spell or two.
Because the idea of the patron is a quid pro quo, right? This is, to me, it's a fundamental difference between the patron and a god.
Right.
God's like, you're my divine instrument of truth, right? Go forth and heal and smite and do all the cool things that god minions need to do. The patron's like, you know what? I know you need some power. I really need a couple things done.
Right.
And so what's missing from that conversation, as Nick rightly pointed out, is what does he need done? And you need some prompts.
Yeah.
And what I found was really awesome about this idea was when we started working on patron missions, I started realizing which patrons hated which patrons. Not the published patrons, right? But my own patron. It was like I had Dornivis, and by the time, and he's an Archomental, right? So the Archomental goes all the way back to the original monster manual. Gary Gygax in created the Archomentals. These are like the princes and lords of the elemental plane. And so there are 5 of each if you go back and read your manual of the planes.
Because it was a feed folio.
And in the Fiend Folio, right? And everything. But they were never fleshed out. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to flesh out the Archomentals because that sounds really cool. And so then I realized that when you're doing patron missions for Dornivis, well, there are more Earth Archomentals, right? What Dornivis is very crystally and earth rumbly and earthquakes and pebbles and things like this and everything. But I'm like, what do other earth elementals look like? The Archomentals, they should be different, but they should be earth based.
Yeah.
Right. And so that led me to create names and give them titles, much like the Cthulhu mythos, where you've got Yog-Sothoth and all these things, right? And I'm like, oh, you have this patron and that patron and that patron, and they hate each other, and that's it. And we wrote these little things in, and then I was like, well, now we need to write these patrons.
You gotta have your sand patron so that Anakin Skywalker can hate him.
Right.
That's right.
Mud patrons.
Okay, so this is
all why we love third-party publishers. Like,
the next patron is Tom Brody, which is the patron of oozes and oils and things like this that are in the earth, including, because it's oil, also things like the dead, not the undead, but the dead, the skeletons that have been fossilized and everything, and he can bring forth these skeletal, fossilized skeletal amalgams and all this stuff, right? Very different than the other one, and everything. So so that stuff. Yeah, I think to answer your question, I think I could write a workbook. That would be fun. And pretty neat. And I found that feedback and everything is really helpful. And I found that it fleshed things out so much better than if I'd thought about myself. So that prompt from one person was so useful, which is why it's great that we've got multiple people playing in this sandbox, because we're going to read those works, and I'm not necessarily going to use them. I'm not going to run them like they were intended, but I'm going to read them and say, oh, that little kernel is really useful for what I want to do. And everything. So that's cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Horde all come together in one box instead of 7, and everything. But yeah. I had one more question, and I can't remember what it is now. We talked about coming back to the Purple Planet. We talked about, does Harley have more Purple Planet in him? The answer is yes to both of those, probably. Yes to one, mostly to the other. Oh, so does this mean, this I think this does mean that Joseph is signaling, you can't wholesale take my things, but you can play in the sandbox. And and you can use the name. It took a long time. It took 3 or 4 issues of Smoking Worm to get Joseph to realize that I wasn't going to trash the name of like Justicia, right? I was going to treat it well. And so I think also from a third party perspective, that means the publisher needs to be forthright with what they're doing. There should be no surprises.
Right.
And so when I'm writing something, I often send Joseph an idea. He gets back to me when I don't rush him. He gets back to me when he gets back to me. And then I send him a tentative manuscript. This is the Word document, mostly written or 90% or 100% written, but it hasn't been edited. And I get his feedback on it. And then and sometimes he says, Trevor, you've stepped over the line. I need you to do X. And I'm just like, absolutely happy to fix that. And then we get to the post editing, as things come together, because the editing is really the point where I spend money. Right. Up until I'm spending time, but I'm not really spending, and time is money. I get that, but I'm not spending anybody else's money. But when the moment I go to an editor, they're charging me X amount per word.
And you want your manuscript to be you want them to be polishing, not like correcting. When somebody edits Harley Stroh where he left XXX and didn't complete that paragraph, like that's not the time for something to be edited.
And if Joseph is going to say this is a problem, I need to know that before it goes to copy edit. Because I may have to rewrite it substantially. So I think there's a lot of room for innovative products from third party space. I once pitched an idea to Joseph Goodman called quick funneling. Actually, way back at the beginning when we were first working on Smoking Worm #1. I don't know what we were thinking, but we had like 3 issues worth of articles originally slated for issue 1, because it's like your eyes are bigger than your mouth. And so I said, Joseph, I said, the problem with and this comes back to you, Harley. The problem with Sailors on the Starless Sea is that it's a great adventure, but you can really only funnel once in it.
Right.
Right. I mean, once you've done it,
you've done
it.
Yeah.
And I said, but what if we could take Sailors in the Starless Sea, and what if I could quick funnel? My characters die. I'm at 3rd level. Everybody else went through Sailors in the Starless Sea. I could reduce Sailors in the Starless Sea. And I'm like, I would put a caveat in there saying, you need to play this first before you try this. But once you've played it, you should quick funnel the next character. If you're in the middle of a campaign, and it would be a series of tables that would take you through
that's clever.
Adventure, and just say, there was this sword here, or there were these coins here, or this. Did you get these, or did you die? Right. And it's like a Traveler or a Central Castings background generator, right? I need a 3rd level character. I think the acknowledgement on my part at the time was that funneling produces a far more vibrant character than non-funneling. And that was the acknowledgement, right? This is a really important step, and you can't get past it, but we could at least short circuit it and allow you to do it even once you've done it. And really, really home in, I think, at the original opening paragraph was, please do not try this at home unless you've played Sailors on the Starless Seas. But here's 5, 6, 10.
Have you made a series of quick funnels yet? I mean, that's brilliant.
I wrote it and I never finished it. It's complete. It's typed up. And what happened with it was there's so many articles to write.
Right.
And because I work differently than most third-party publishers where they have an adventure and that's the idea. I write in 1,000 word space, 500 word space, 2,000, all the way up to about 5 or 6,000 word space, maybe 8. If it's really big, 8 is really pushing. That's half an issue of Smoking. And so, the list of ideas never ends. And I wrote it, and I just never. I think it just needs polishing, and it'd be done. I could throw it into an issue this year. Why haven't I finished it? I know it's 100% written, and it's just sitting there waiting for me to get to it.
That's such a cool concept.
Some things never fit. There's layout issues, and I work with word count to plan issues, and then I also have a little caveat of table number, because tables take up a lot more space than you think they do to do them well. And I should get it out there. It's been sitting. It has been done for 5 years or 4 years, or whatever, since 2019 when I wrote it.
Well, we're talking about third-party publishers. Like, it can't be overstated just how much when Joseph's, when these projects need new writers. Because I'm slow, and like Tim Callahan, I don't know if he's writing for games anymore. So he contributed to the original Purple Planet, but he's not anymore. Like, Joseph always goes to the third-party publications when he's looking for like the next generation of writers to bring up into Goodman Games official. But like, how cool would it be for like every zero level funnel that was published also came with a
quick funnel in the back?
Yeah, like a 5-page quick funnel. Like, okay, well, all your characters die. You can revisit this at 5th level, and here you go. Like, that would be so much fun.
Yeah, and it would be a value added thing. And that here's a judge tool. That when your guys die and you've gone through this, you just ask the player, have you been through this? Yeah. Okay. Here's the back of the book. Quick funnel through it. You'll build a character or you'll die. And then you build another character. Because just like Traveler, you gotta, if you don't have anything on the line, it's not worth doing.
Right.
All right. And I was like, so you have to die. There has to be the possibility that you were squished by the ruined castle corner that has the big rubble. I killed 7 players in that.
I'm so sorry, dude.
In one instant. I was just
characters or players?
Sorry, I killed 7 characters.
7 actual players.
Yep. It's like you, 2 of yours, and you're all dead. It's just like the whole thing swiveled and crushed you. And but that's my point. Is it funnels are deadly, and quick funneling should be deadly too. So I think there was, when I wrote the quick funnel idea, it was there was something you got out of it. It was like, this character's dead, but X.
Oh, nice.
So there was like an outcome that was, it wasn't, there was like outcomes that were bad, take this character and do this, and this to him, and that's the character that survives, or you've lost your leg. There were maimings. Because I believe that, maimings are okay to characters. That's perfectly fine. Losing eyes or legs or arms, and that just builds character.
It's like corruption when you get down to it.
It is. So yeah. But and I hope that we'll see more funnels in Purple Planet.
Oh, we
need more.
We do. Well, and hopefully third-party publishers will be the ones creating them.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Well, isn't one of the Horde projects is a funnel, isn't it?
No, you're absolutely right.
But certainly the hope would be, hey, if there's someone who gets into, jumps into the Purple Planet milieu with these products, with this project, and decides, man, I really love this, by all means, put out your own adventure for it. That's one of the messages that we return to time and again on Scrivenery is taking that first step is mostly just about having the courage and confidence or encouragement to do it. And then once you start doing it, you realize, you know what, I can do this.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Purple Planet is, first of all, it's an in-house organ, right? So there is no licensing problems outside of Goodman. So that's a phenomenal stepping stone. But it's built. So you have a book that you can pick up and say, what is this world like? Unlike so many other third-party publishers who build their own adventures, right? Or Ed, who builds his own game world. that can be incredibly daunting to start with nothing with a blank page. Here you have the Purple Planet material to say what could I springboard off of? What little thing sat in a corner that nobody noticed that I'm like, that is awesome. The purple fungus is the thing to do, right? Yeah, or whatever it is. So I think we lost Harley, or he's very, very slow sometimes. Be patient.
Okay, well, we'll give him a moment and see if he did say that he was the environment that he was in was the internet was questionable.
Yep.
I think he just popped back.
Elena, do you need to reconfigure us, Elena? Okay.
Sorry for that.
So no, you guys are good. So I explained this before the show. We're normally I'm in Colorado, but right now I'm in Wyoming, and I didn't want to miss this, so I drove into town, and I'm actually inside a church right now, using their internet.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
So I have a one other question that I wanted to pick Harley's brain on. Again, because the focus of our show is helping people to get into or make progress in the third-party publishing process. As a Goodman Games insider, are there certain things that to you are characteristics that when a third-party publication comes along, either that really catch your eye and you're like, oh, no, that's neat. I think that's, something that's a real value add, or is there at least a certain type of thing that you feel like, here's the kind of thing that I like to see, that I like to have available, and I think is a particularly helpful addition to the to the third party universe. Something that any thoughts on that for the sake of our viewers?
Yeah, I think you guys have heard me say this time and time before, but I am such a sucker for beautiful art. So I'm not just using Tales from the Smoking Worm, just to make Trevor feel good. Like the cover art is beautiful, and like I said earlier, that makes me want to like own it. And if my $5 can go towards making sure that there's more of this out in the world, like what a gift and an opportunity. I think when it comes to third party publications, what always speaks to me is the passion and the love behind whoever's writing it, because it only exists inside your brain, Ed, and you've had a life lived full of experiences and loves that you're going to distill and imbue in ink on this paper, and if it's something that you're passionate about, odds are really good that I'm going to read it, fall in love with it, and then want to deliver it to my players. And so if there was one thing that I would say is kind of a cop out, but like what do I look for is just something that the creator, the writer, the author is passionate and in love with, and more times than not that is really clear. DCC was created because we were writing the game that we wanted to play, and it just so happened that a lot of you wanted to play that game as well. And so and when Memories on the Purple Planet, you're writing the adventure that you want to play, and we're going to jump in on that because it's a vision of something passionate and cool that we couldn't have come up with because it's solely from your brain.
Trevor, any other thoughts?
I think you've answered all the Purple Planet questions, and because I was really interested in the mechanics of the relationships and the working, by relationships I mean working relationships between the third-party publishers and the main team. It's such a unique moment and experience for you guys to do this for the first time for within the DCC third-party publisher space and everything. And I believe, thinking back on it, I can't think of a single analog in gaming. There has not been a product relaunch or anything like that,
Right.
a gaming world relaunch where the company said, while we're doing this, we're going to go ahead and amplify the amount of material available by bringing in a whole bunch of unique voices to help. Then it's not going to be our products; they're going to be their products, but they're going to get to show you what other things you could do with this, and they arrive right alongside our products, which is great.
Yeah, it's really it's an awesome time to be a third party publisher. Working with Goodman Games. I think we haven't done the postmortem yet. Obviously, the campaign's only halfway through, but it's been from the inside, it feels like it's been wildly successful, and the Purple Planet Horde also has been just a really wonderful experience. And I can't speak for Joseph, but it's something that we're going to want to do again in the future, and in similar releases, and who knows, like maybe down the line, maybe if Ed can be campaign manager, we could like, what if we did a bunch of all new material, like who knows, like whenever product X gets released that no one's even talked about yet. That Goodman holds one thrust, and and Blind Visionary takes over this piece, and on down the line, like I don't know, there's a lot of opportunity here because gaming's about sharing, right? Like we could I was the kid that lived on a farm, and I'm not ashamed to say, well, maybe I am ashamed, but I ran games for myself. But that's not what's exciting. It's when we get to sit in a circle with friends, and even if you're a horrible introvert like myself, to sit around a table of people that are all passionate about this thing that we love. That's where the magic is.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that was particularly powerful about this application of that idea was because Purple Planet is a for lack of a better word, campaign world. Mm-hmm. Having it release with or relaunch with things to go along with it, things that you can jump into immediately and do within that campaign setting.
Yeah,
I think it makes that product a lot more attractive to the potential user, because it's not just, now some people will buy a World of Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, whatever, and they will take it and they will run with it and do their own thing in there. Some people have that environment, and then that's overwhelming, and they want to have some help with, okay, but what do I do within that? And I think having those products to come along with it helps it to hit the ground running. And so hopefully, the Horde has helped to be a value add part of this process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that message shouldn't surprise us, right? This is the lesson that TSR learned in 1975, right? When they put out the little adventures and modules and stuff, that TSR was like, well, we don't see why anybody would want these. You just make your own dungeon. But that was because it was a very limited mindset of, we all make dungeons, right? And then they realized that, well, the people who are buying this product aren't necessarily war gamers. They're not necessarily people steeped in the same experiences as others, and they don't know how to make dungeons, or maybe they don't want to make dungeons. They just want to run them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a nice secret sauce that Goodman has going for them, is they have so many adventures. But certainly, like you saw with Dying Earth, when you would launch 10 adventures at the same time as the main box set, that has to be 3 or 4 years worth of work. Right. It's far more parsimonious to say, when it's your own product, to say, we've already got some adventures, we're going to do a couple more, but gosh, let's get 7 or 8 publishers to do their own thing and share in the wealth, and we'll make an even better product.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think this is a good example for third-party publishers, independent of Joseph Goodman and Goodman Games, right? This doesn't mean that you've got to wait for Goodman Games to launch Journey to the Center of the Earth Part 2, right?
Yeah.
Or Return to the Purple Planet, or Warlords of the Purple Planet, or anything like that. This means that third-party publishers could sit down together
Yes.
and
Yes.
and work on things themselves and say, gosh, Ed's got Pax Lesque, right? And it would be really cool to do a couple of adventures in there. And everything. I know that Ed and I have talked several times because I work with some Nordic and Celtic and Viking mythology and things like this. I'm like, well, I'm building trolls as the player class. That's something that could fit into Pax Lesque pretty easily, right? Or I've been working on another project that's actually system agnostic, but ties into some of the metaphysics of some of the stuff Ed's working on. These types of things, I have to tell you from a third party publisher perspective, it's great to have friends and build things together.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you even need good? And I know you're saying this, but to underscore, do you even need Goodman Games? If a coalition of third party publishers got together and worked together on releasing, they had like 7 different campaigns, so everyone's like made aware of it, and they're all using their own email lists and pulling people in to promote, new thing X. Like, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
And there's any number of avenues by which you could get that started, and don't. I think part of our thrust here is don't wait for an invitation from Goodman Games to collaborate. There's the DCC Facebook group where you could post on there and say, hey, I'm kind of thinking of doing a thing like this. Would someone like to collaborate on that? Or if get familiar with some of the other types of products out there, and if you know that, this person has, if you take, for example, Starcrawl, all right, you or Weird Frontiers or any of these, particularly things with it are, new direction kind of things, and you'd say, I think I'd like to do something that's related to that. Contact the person. I've had people contact me and say, hey, I kind of like to have this thing that ties in somewhat with your world. By all means. And, so there's you can do that social media. I'll also mention here now, I will add on a discussion section of the aforementioned Gong Farmers Discord for collaborations, for opportunities for people to talk with other people in the community and ask about, hey, does anybody want to work on a such and such with me? Mm-hmm. So there's various means
all
by
the
which
different chapters contributed something. I mean, it'd be obviously you're only going to get like 5, 8%, 20% that manage to do so, but even then, that would be amazing.
Yeah. You know what we need? An X-crawl collaborative thing where each of these local chapters puts out an X-crawl thing that takes place in their city in the X-crawl universe.
100% sold. Done. Do that.
I'll contact Brandon and say,
or where each of the third party publishers creates their own dungeon designer, right? Was it the disc jockey or whatever it is?
Right.
The DJ.
Yeah.
The dungeon jockey, and so they're creating the competition across. They're competing with each other, and this is the 2021 Midwest regional X-crawl season and everything, and you've got 4 dungeons or something.
And Trevor, and you use your patron worksheet to make that a DJ worksheet.
This is what the DJ should do. Yep, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. I love that notion.
Yeah, I think it's really important to work together as third-party publishers and to bounce off of each other. I think this is it's something I think Ed and I have said in the past. I've been working on a new product. I've mentioned it maybe once or twice, Earthcrawl. And in the back of Earthcrawl is a life history. It's a 0-level generator. Actually, this just went out to a whole bunch of my backers. This is the little Ashcan 1.0, which is 0-level creation in very rough form. And in the back of it, it has a life history generator, and it goes into the negatives. It's a D30 roll, but it goes to -3 and it goes to 33. So you add your luck into it. And on one of them, you actually get caught into Terror on the Stratusfiend, and you're actually demonically possessed by one of the character classes, the Stratusfiend character class. You don't know it. You just know that you have these nightmare dreams. But when you become first level, you actually take on the Stratusfiend class, whichever one that you've been possessed by.
Wow.
And so I reached out And I was like, I was like, I have all the Terror on the Stratus Fiend. There's actually a product whose name Wolf 35 or something like this is actually on Kickstarter right now. That's a big mega dungeon for Terror on the Stratus Fiend. And I was like, I love your product. This is great stuff. I'm like, I'm working on this idea, and I don't want to reprint your stuff. What I want to do is I want to list it. I want to make it optional, and I want to reference it at the bottom and tell people, go buy this, right? So that all I'm doing is linking us together and saying this stuff is it's great to play in my universe or whatever, or it fits perfectly. So here you go, just go get it. It's two or three other zines, but it'll really augment what you've got. And so yeah, so I find that it's really helpful to reach out to my colleagues, right, my fellow third party publishers, and say, you've built something that's awesome. Now I want to tweak it, or I want to use it, and I don't want to reprint it. I don't have time for that. But I have time to reference it and maybe give the 5 different changes that need to happen to work in this product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so feel free you should reach out to people and start dialogues, because as a third party publisher, there's a lot of potential there. Yeah.
Guys, we got to do the X crawl Gong Farmers local.
I've made some notes about that. I'm going to reach out to Brendan about it, and I'm going to put some stuff up on the Gong Farmers. Yeah, my mind is already, gears are turning on that. I mean, you could have
dungeon, doesn't have to be big, just like 5 set pieces, go.
Well, and because of the way that X-Crawl works, where each encounter can be completely independent of others, you could have, with our local, we're going to have 6 people working on it. Each one of you is going to do your own encounter.
Yep.
They don't have to be related. We'll snap those together into the.
And you could work it like a 5-room dungeon. You could say each local has to put together as a team 5 rooms.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their so it's like the 5-room competition, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
This is your Gong Farmer locals contribution to the 5-room competition. and it's like stripped down and everything. Yeah, that would be awesome. I think that would be great.
We gotta do this.
Lead the way, Ed. I'll build some rooms that people don't like to go through.
All right, I will definitely champion this and get it running.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, we have covered a great deal of ground tonight, perhaps more than I thought we could get to. So I want to offer my gratitude to Harley Stroh for joining us on this episode. It has been quite a fun ride. I'm hoping that we can do it again at some point in the future.
Yeah, a real privilege to be here. So, and I mean that sincerely. Thank you guys so much for having me on. And thank you for being patient. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, it's been a real treat.
Yeah.
So.
And so just to give a plug for next episode, 2 weeks from today, we are going to have James Posnell on as a guest. We're going to be talking about taking the DCC Foundation into totally new directions that are not DCC, and what you can do with products in that vein. He's going to be talking to us about his Computarx products, but we're going to be talking about other things within that conceptual diversion as well. And so, Harley, Trevor, if you want to add anything else, otherwise
I have one last plug.
Sure.
Next weekend is CincyCon, folks. Nice. If you're in the Cincinnati area, you should go check it out. I will be there. I think Ed will be there.
Yeah, I'm running 2 games for the Glory of Rome and an X-Crawl game.
That's awesome. I'm not running any games, but I am running the Goodman Games booth.
Oh, nice.
So, there's going to be a whole bunch of third-party publishers there. I believe James Posnell is going to be down there.
Yeah, he's
going to be down there. I think Luau Lu is going to be down there. If I remember correctly, I'm hoping that Jeff Seifert's going to make it over. There's a whole bunch of us coming into one spot. And so this is a great time to come out and pick our brains. I'm sure there'll be some after hours games and stuff. So come down and check it out. It's 3 days. CincyCon.org, I think, is the website, and everything. So come and check it out. I think.
And unlike most cons, the food is quite affordable.
Nice.
Oh, great! I have never been to it, so I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, hopefully I'll see everybody next weekend. Ed, I'll definitely see you next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get, if you got a free ticket, just fly on in. We'll find a space for you.
That's right. Yeah, I've still got openings for my games. I think some of the other DCC judges do as well. So, and they're you can do a lot of walk-ups too. So,
yeah, awesome.
All right, thanks for watching.
Yeah,
and we hope to catch you again in 2 weeks. This is Scrivenery out. Good night.
Good night, everybody.